Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Transgender who hates Trump's Christians and Jews shoots up kids at a Catholic school, and the media wants to take away your handgun. So how are we supposed to protect ourselves from trans shooters? The media is bad at pattern recognition. We aren't. Just 2 years ago, another trans 20-something walked into a Christian school in Nashville with a rifle and shot 3 kids and 3 adults. They buried the manifesto and locked down the case. We've seen trans shootings in Colorado and in Maryland. They even shot up an ICE facility in Texas. And it seems like half of Antifa's trans. A couple of they-thems just got popped for firebombing Teslas. The mayor of Minneapolis says, you can't say that.
Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
I don't hate anyone who thinks they're trans. I feel sorry for them. But statistically, the trans population has been prone to violence. That's not villainizing, that's reality. And if you can't recognize reality, you're in danger. We love the American people, especially American children. And if they're troubled and believe they're somehow a girl trapped in a boy's body, we want to get them help. We don't want to give them hormones and operate on them. Society shouldn't be trying to produce more trans kids. We shouldn't be encouraging an emotional disorder or whatever this is. And doctors should stop profiting from it. Great Britain ended child sex change surgeries. They said it's barbaric, and they're right. And politicians should stop elevating the trans issue like it's the civil rights struggle of the 21st century. You see it all over Minneapolis.
Minneapolis will continue to be a safe haven for our trans community.
For being a safe haven for transgender individuals.
We have sued them for gender-affirming care. Yes, we are not going to scapegoat our transgender community.
When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday, my friends. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, the problem is the politics of violence. From transgender terrorism on Christian children to the Islamist gang rape threat on children in Western nations because of bad policies. And this show is supposed to focus on election actions and preparations for elections because we have a special guest with us today that is highly knowledgeable of that and works for the organization Turning Point Action. And we wanted to talk exclusively about how to win elections, what Turning Point Action is doing with its activists, how it recruits and those kind of things for the whole hour. But we can't do that because the events of this week, we're going to spend some time on them. What is the politics of violence? Well, all you have to do is listen to the socialist left politicians in America today, and you hear it everywhere. They have indoctrinated sectors of their base, like the transgender community, to the extent that most of them actually believe they need to rise up in armed combat against the current administration, against President Trump individually, and against Christians in general. The mayor of Minneapolis that you just saw there even mocked the 2 children that were tragically murdered yesterday because they were praying when they were murdered. The massacre has been rightly classified as a, quote, act of domestic terrorism, unquote, and a, quote, hate crime targeting Catholics, unquote, by the FBI. The massacre was carried out by transgender Robin, aka Robin, real name Robert Westman. Please pray for his victims and their families. We also witnessed the consequences of bad immigration policies this week by a Western nation when a video surfaced of a Scottish girl wielding a large bladed weapon and an axe to protect her sister and friend from the threat of Islamist gang rape suspects in broad daylight in Scotland. The sad part about that event is the girl was arrested for trying to defend herself and her companions. My guest today to talk about all of this and winning elections is Drianna Sixto. Drianna is a conservative activist and media spokesperson for Turning Point Action. She's known for her brilliant bilingual outreach to Hispanic voters, her media training, appearances on networks like Fox News, and now the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube and discussing politics. And she's got a background in international relations. She's been with Turning Point for a decade and organizes bringing winning strategies to elections by advocating for the best policies, the best tactics, the best training, and recruiting the best young activists for the best ground game in the business. And believe me, I know my PAC, Gator PAC, made its largest donation in the 2024 election cycle to Turning Point Action's ground game of ballot chasing to win the election for Donald J. Trump. And that team combined did that. Drianna, welcome to the Rob Maness Show. It's good to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I won't say the show got sidetracked, but we have to talk about these issues because they are core to why I think Turning Point exists, and Charlie created the organization. These issues are core to the what some call the Zoomer generation, Generation Z, and therefore core to the future of the country, because Generation Z is the future of the country. And we see a lot of this activity happening, both of the incidents that I pointed out there, amongst that generation. Before we dive into that, just make sure folks that I got everything in your background. Tell me how you decided to get into this political arena. I always like to know those stories.
Yeah, well, I'll keep it as brief as I possibly can. I'm Cuban American. I was born in this country, but my father was able to come to this country because he was a political prisoner in Cuba for opposing the Castro regime. And only after serving that sentence was he able to appeal to the U.S. Embassy in Cuba, get a visa to legally come to this country. My mother and him were married for 10 years in Cuba, and they did not want to have children there because they wanted me to be born in the land of freedom and opportunity. And when they were finally able to do so, they came here. And so they never let me or my sister forget the reason why they came here, the principles of liberty that they followed, that they chased. Truly, they upended their entire lives to be able to give us these opportunities. And so I have always felt that it is kind of my duty to pay it back and make sure that my country, the United States, does not turn into the socialist or communist hellholes that my parents escaped from and that a lot of migrants do escape from, like Venezuelans, some Central Americans. And so I guess it's just in my blood is the very brief definition of this.
I think it's great. It's a great story. And I think I missed, don't you have do you have a podcast show too? I think I missed that in my introduction.
Yes. So I have a weekly Spanish podcast show via Claro y Directo America, which basically means Clear and Direct America on YouTube. It is the only nationwide right-wing Spanish media channel delivering news day to day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then I have my weekly weekend show on Sundays called Pero Por Qué, which means But Why, where I do more of a deep dive into certain subjects. And so the idea is that we have to wake our side up. I think the lines have been drawn in the sand in this country as to where people stand politically. A lot of it is due to the madness that we see coming out from the left. I feel like the only untapped demographic, however, is the Hispanic American population in the US because of that language barrier and because of the fact that for so long they've only had the option of getting their information and their news from left-wing biased news outlets like Univision and Telemundo. And so Claro y Directo is the response to that. And I feel like I have a duty to make a difference in that route as well.
Absolutely. I think it's fantastic that there's one show and you're the host of it, and I get to have you on my show. Well, this issue with transgenderism, it's not just about, and this is my opinion, it's not just about transgender and identity, ideology, and that kind of perspective. And I led off with political violence. The politics of violence. Let me read you some things that Andy Ngo reported. Andy Ngo has been an independent reporter, has been reporting on Antifa for many, many years now. He reported this off an Antifa website. I think it's Reddit. I'll just read a couple of the quotes because what his reporting is that they are ecstatic about the deaths, the successful attack and deaths on the Catholic Church and death of Catholic children while they were praying. More dead Christians, LOL, quote, unquote. Here's another one, quote, this is Republicans' fault for trying to genocide us, unquote.
Out.
Future religious extremists dying isn't a bad thing, quote, unquote. Now, those comments is why I put the politics of violence at the beginning of the title of this show, because I think the rhetoric coming from the left and being expanded upon and amplified by their media, which is the majority of media in this country, even on the web, is at a root cause of this, even beyond the fact that now we have a trend of transgender terrorism going against Christian churches. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's because all of the ideology from the left derives from a point of violence, because everything that they advocate for is including non-consent. So let me explain real quick. The left advocates for bigger government. The left advocates for socialism, communism. I personally have a philosophy of live and let live. Right? Do whatever you want in your personal life, as long as it doesn't affect me, as long as you're not asking me to pay for what you want, as long as you're not asking me to say something that I don't want to say, believe something that I don't want to believe, you can live your own life however the heck you want. But that is not the root of what the left believes in. They believe in socialism, meaning they believe that they should have free things paid for at my expense with the money in my pocket. They believe in the fact that, well, if they call themselves transgenders, they don't want to just be transgenders. They want me to call them what they aren't biologically, and then say that I am being violent towards them for not perpetuating a delusion. And they believe that I should be censored and that I should be punished for not parroting what they want me to say. And so everything that they advocate for stems from violence, because it stems from forcing onto people what their beliefs are. They're both economic beliefs and cultural beliefs. So it's no wonder then that they've turned to this violent route, because obviously the right is simply just not going to go ahead and to appease them say, yes, you're calling yourself a woman even though you're biologically a man, therefore I'm going to call you a woman. That's not going to happen. And as a result of that, they think that I'm being a bad person and they have a right to commit violence against people that think like me. And so in their mind, they truly, and this is what is wild and this is why it's so dangerous, in their mind, they truly feel justified in this political violence. And we have to address it as a nation. We have to address it as a nation. This is an issue of public safety at this point. I think that, well, the only good thing to come out of tragedies like this is that it truly is defining the left for what they are, for the violent monster that they are. And it's splitting, again, drawing the lines in the sand between the left and the right in this country a lot more clearly. And so it's become less of an issue. I don't think we have an issue anymore in convincing people that our side is the side of reason, of logic, of loving this country, of loving thy neighbor. It's just a matter of turning out our people to vote. That's where turning point action comes in. I do think we have the numbers. We just statistically have the numbers for winning elections. It's just making sure our side turns out to vote so that elected politicians do not reflect the interests and values of these extremist individuals.
Yeah, and I don't like being called an extremist, but I have to call them out, and I would just add to everything you said. I totally agree with before we go to this break here, and I would just add to it that when a government entity is using force to make me say a man is a woman under threat of law and using government force, that is a violation of my individual rights and a violation of the whole concept of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the basis of the Declaration of Independence and why this country exists. So I would just add that to it because tyranny is defined that way, use of government force to make people bend the knee. And that's exactly one of the things that's going on here. We got to take a break. When we come back, though, we'll show the little clip of the Scottish girl. And there's some foul language in it. Warning for that. Guys in the production room, be ready with your bleeper as it goes out on the air. But there is some foul language in it. We'll be right back with Dorena Sixto of Turning Point Action. Welcome back to Truth Thursday on the Ralph Maina Show. Sorry, we had to mute the audio of the video there showing the Scottish young lady defending herself, her sister, and her companion from the Islamists that was shouting sexual phrases at them. They told them to stop in very strong language, and then the young lady drew a bladed weapon and an axe in order to defend themselves because the Islamist and a woman reported to be his wife actually attacked her older sister. That's why they were in the altercation. But what you couldn't hear from the Islamist is him taunting her to get her to show the weapons, because he was the one videoing it. And this young lady was later arrested for defending herself by showing those weapons at this guy. And gang raping from Islamist immigrants in the UK in general is rapidly on the rise, and the information about these rapes is being suppressed by law enforcement and its government. And my guest today is Driana Sixto's spokeswoman for Turning Point Action, Hispanic Outreach Director, and the host of the only show in Spanish language from the right wing in the United States of America. Driana, I had to bring this event in because what we talked about in the first segment with the transgender terrorism and this event really are connected. And let me just make the connection for you there. From a national security and terrorism perspective, we have had immigration policy and an open border policy the last 4 years that allowed millions and millions of people unvetted to be in our country. We know there are over 70,000 Afghanis that very few of them were vetted, refugees from the Afghanistan withdrawal. We know there are Venezuelan gang members that are acting as terrorists on behalf of Venezuela and the narco terrorist organizations, the cartels that are in this country. We know there are 100,000 or so Chinese military-age males that came through the border illegally, and China's Communist Party communist governments don't let people go without either giving them permission or they shoot their way out. These folks didn't shoot their way out. So we know we have these nefarious actors, and I didn't even talk about the other Islamist potential terror cells from places like Iran and those kind of things. So there is a connection there because the UK has gotten like this because of really bad immigration policy. And we could very well be seeing a rise in gang rapes against young women very soon if we don't pay attention to this, couldn't we?
Yeah, and we've seen that is already the case in Democrat-led states and towns and any place that calls themselves a sanctuary city or a sanctuary for illegal immigration. They flock to those places because they know that they will be protected by Democrat officials from citizens of the U.S. And it truly is so sad to see that video. It went viral, so I listened to it with audio. And yes, there's a lot of expletive words, but it definitely merits that. It definitely merits that. And it is tragic then that the government would go after the victim of this crime. I think I speak for a lot of legal migrants or parents that came here legally when I say that we don't want the United States to become the same thing that they had to escape from. Okay, it beats the purpose of migration. It beats the purpose of escaping these violent gangs if they're going to then appear in the same way here in the United States. And we absolutely were headed towards that direction nationally with the last administration's open border policy. They allowed an invasion into this country, and they did it for political purposes because we know till very recently, they're using the way that the census is used to apportion representatives in this country and give electoral votes to each state for that. So they knew they had to up their numbers and they had to open the border to illegals to do so that they could get more political power. It really is, it's disturbing. And yes, this is a trend where we're seeing a Western culture it's being attacked left and right. It's being attacked in Europe. It's being attacked here in the United States. Everybody says that we can appreciate every culture. Sure, that is the case. I appreciate many different aspects of other cultures. I love Mexican food. I love Cuban food. I love those kinds of things. But I definitely want to live in a place that is ruled by Western culture, and I want to keep it that way. And I think everybody that migrates to a country that whose main culture is Western culture needs to assimilate. They need to assimilate, or else they need to get out. And they are a threat. They are an inherent threat to the sovereignty of the country and its long-term survival. And that's what we're seeing here. I haven't left the country on vacation anytime soon, but I can tell you right now, there's a lot of places in Europe that I just would not step foot in because of this migrant crisis that they have. And so, you know, it's terrible that that's happening, and we could very well see ourselves in the same situation if Donald J. Trump had not been elected, and if we didn't have right-wing politicians standing up for us as they should be.
Absolutely right. You know, when you're talking to Hispanic voters and getting feedback from them, the policies like the Trump administration just announced they're going to do a review of all 55 million visitor visas in the country, and we've secured the border, even using the military to do that. What kind of feedback are you getting on those policies? I mean, it's what I voted for, and it's what. You know, I have a cousin that's Hispanic. His family's from Mexico. He voted for it too. So what do you hear when you're talking to folks?
So I think there needs to be a differentiation between what we hear from legal Hispanics in this country and those that are here either illegally or with some kind of temporary permit. The only opinions we need to be listening to are those that are here legally and that can have a voice to vote, that have legal permanent residence or are legal citizens of the United States. And amongst those people, amongst those Hispanics, they are so in support of President Trump and his policies. I think that there is a huge majority that support him, just from a social perspective, because Hispanics naturally are traditionally conservative, and also from an economic perspective, because it affects their pockets more than, let's say, most Caucasian Americans. Because when we get the third world from Hispanic countries imported in here, where are they going to go to? They're going to settle in mostly minority majority neighborhoods, mostly Hispanic majority neighborhoods. And they're going to see, the legal ones, they're going to see the negative effects of that happening. And so they are extremely vocal on that. I mean, I can just, for people that I know, my hairdresser, he complains all the time that, you know, he's working in this country. He has done everything legally the correct way, and he has some family members that are going through the process of migrating here legally, and it's taken such a long time, and he's pissed off that there's people that have taken a shortcut, right? And so it's just not fair. And I personally just don't care about the opinions anymore of those that don't have any kind of legal basis to be here in this country. Anybody that's not supposed to be in this country, that they're here illegally or have some kind of a temporary visa that was granted to them, by the way, out of the kindness of the heart of this country, knowing that it's temporary, right? And then getting mad at the fact that we're just enforcing the fact that it was temporary and that they have to go back to their home countries. You know, I get it that everybody has a different background story that could be tragic, and everybody has a reason to want to come to the greatest country on planet Earth, but nobody has a right to. And I have more sympathy for the Americans in this country that for the first time in history do not have access to the American dream. Okay. This started with this generation, my generation, by the way. I'm a millennial. Maybe that'll age me a little bit, but my generation is the first generation that does not have access to the American dream, where it is nearly impossible for two people, not just one person, two people working full-time jobs to not be able to afford a home in this country, right? We are living to work and living paycheck to paycheck and living to rent. We have been priced out of the American dream by politicians that have sold us out. So I have more sympathy for this generation of Americans, the ones that are here legally. And I think we should focus on fixing things first before we think about charity for anybody else on the outside.
I can't disagree with you at all. There's a you're absolutely right. There's a generational aspect and there's a religious aspect to everything we've been talking about. I want to get your take on it after this break in the next segment, which will open with a video about President Trump's law enforcement in the District of Columbia. And it's something else that I voted for. I'll see you back in a minute with Drianna Sixto of Turning Point Action.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
What Donald Trump proved, that it's possible to end black on black crime. He proved that, right? In DC, his troops, no murders for the entire weekend. That is insane. And to think that the left would protest against that, to think that the left would say, oh my God, it is a bad thing that black people are now stop killing each other. And the reason why that is a bad thing for them is because that is a core of liberalism, right? That is part of what makes them victims. So if you take away each sort of victim mentality peg or pillar, that's one less person that'll be a leftist.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday. And, that clip there, the policies of this president and the decision-making capability that he displays every single day, it's not bad for a guy that's in real estate and construction and builds golf courses and does TV shows. He's doing fantastic. He is one of the best decision-makers I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And my profession is about decision-making under pressure. My whole military profession is about that. And Donald Trump is the best I've ever seen. I have to admit that. And he is taking on crime in the District of Columbia like no one else either can from a legal perspective or would from a courage perspective. And my guest today is the Turning Point Action spokeswoman, Drianna Sixto. And Drianna, before we dive into the crime policy in D.C. and using the National Guard and those kind of things. Before the break, I was talking about there's a religious aspect to this, and it comes from a couple of different directions. One is when you look at this latest shooter's weapon in his video and his manifesto, you see all kinds of editorializing using anti-Semitic messages, anti-Catholic messages, regular, Christians at large messages, and coming from Minnesota and Minneapolis, which some people call Mogadishu West, the Islamist Somalis that have taken over the town, seeing that combination of messaging in full force, in black and white, so to speak, didn't surprise me, but I think it's surprising folks that haven't been paying attention to this. Because Islamism isn't compatible with the United States government, and this anti-Christian extremism, now we know it is, really is antithetical to everything the United States has ever created to support, which is freedom, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this particular sect of the left, they just hate anybody that believes in a God because their God is government. Okay. Their God is government because they plan on using that God to force things upon other people. Their God is government because they want the government to create laws that censor free speech, and they want to create laws that would put me in jail for calling them a man when they are a man. So they naturally would reject anybody that believes in a God other than government, no matter which religion that may be, Islam, Christianity, anything else. So that's one thing. The other thing is, well, it's kind of ironic in a way because in Minneapolis, as you mentioned, there's a large Muslim population, and they, even though I personally don't agree with a lot of the values and principles of Islam, they as a whole are a lot more socially conservative, right? They're a lot more socially conservative. And so this whole extremism from these trans terrorists is bringing in people to our side that we wouldn't expect to, right? We might not agree with everything, but we agree on this one thing, which is we can't allow the people that are supposed to be in a loony bin to be running politics and policy in the United States. And so I think it's a very interesting situation that there is here. They're driving unexpected people to our side just because we are the side of sanity and logic at this point. So
yeah, you're absolutely right.
The light at the end of the tunnel here I see is that Americans are going to band together more than ever before to combat this leftist extremism. I think we saw that in this last election where Trump won by historic margins, not just within the Republican voting population, but also amongst independents. We saw the merge of the Maha Robert Kennedy independent brand along with ours. I think that this is bringing us together to fight for the cultural survival of this country as a whole. So we'll see what happens down the line if Democrat politicians keep catering to less than, I don't know, 0.1% of the population or 0.1% of the population. It's such a tiny, tiny community that they are catering to. It really makes you wonder why. Why is it that they are trying to create these safe spaces or politics to protect such a tiny, crazy population in this country? It doesn't help them politically, right? Because it wouldn't help them truly win any elections. So I think we should all be looking and doing our own research as to the motives behind that.
Oh, absolutely right. My only concern with Islamism, not Muslims, but Islamism, the fanatical ideology is, if like we were talking about in the last segment, if immigrants will embrace America and America's values and government system and not try to transform it into what they ran away from, like in Mogadishu, Somalia, where you have Sharia law and those kind of things, we can live together. Because you're right, they are, Muslims are socially very conservative, and we have places where we can and do ally on that here in America, as long as these immigrants have embraced America and want to be Americans. There's a difference in that, and you pointed that out in the last segment. Well, we've got some hands up in our live audience. They want to ask you a question, so we'll go ahead and take a question from the live audience. Go ahead. Shell is our host over there.
Good afternoon. My question to you is, Tommy Robinson has been warning us about this for a long time. And now that they're, starting to get into our communities, what is your suggestion for the conversation that we need to start having in our communities and with our neighbors to stop this tiny movement, as you call it, from getting any bigger and getting everybody to the polls to vote correctly to, make laws to keep this from happening?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think three things off the top of my head. The first law is making sure that our Second Amendment rights are strong, that our rights to defend ourselves definitely don't get attacked by leftist politicians. As you can see, these poor girls in the video shown earlier, all they had was knives to defend themselves. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, making sure that we put this tiny community of insane people where they belong. And Donald Trump suggested this before. He suggested bringing back insane asylums. And absolutely, I think that that's where they belong. They need help. They need professional help. They need professional treatment. Anybody that just believes in an alternate reality, and an alternate reality, part of that definitely qualifies as being of one gender and thinking that you are the other. I think that that would qualify anybody as crazy, right? Because you're not living in reality. I think those people need to get treatment. And definitely then the other thing to get people out to vote is something that Turning Point Action obviously works well in doing. We have also a way to make sure that the general population, if you're watching this right now, if you're Republican, anybody can download this app called the TP Action app. If you go to tpaction.com/app, you'll be able to download it into your iPhone or your Android, and that app will let you see who your closest Republican neighbors are. Nothing else like this exists, by the way. From where you stand, it'll show you who your 15 closest Republican neighbors are. And so the idea of why this was created is that every single person, you don't have to be a paid staffer. You don't have to wait for an election cycle. Every single person makes themselves the CEO of their block, of their street, basically. You need to know who your Republican neighbors are, and you need to make yourself responsible for them getting out to vote. Okay, because a lot of people are seeing these kinds of extreme tragedies, and obviously they would vote for our side, for our people, but sometimes they just don't do it. Or there might be smaller special elections, local elections, that really are the ones that matter and that aren't held at the same time as a November presidential election or a midterm election. And so you don't have Republican turnout for that. So that's the third thing I would say is do your part in making sure that we get our people to turn out to vote. This is free. This was used by my organization, Turning Point Action, for the last election cycle to ballot chase, what Rob was mentioning earlier in the program, to ballot chase and make sure that people that have an absentee ballot at home go and turn that in. It's about being neighborly, right? It's about me finding through my phone who my neighbors are and introducing myself before an election cycle starts so that it's not weird, so that it's not transactional, so that they don't get annoyed thinking, oh, we're in election, season. Here comes this random person to annoy me and tell me to vote. If I introduce myself way before that happens and just offer neighborly help and invite them out to an event that I'm going to next month, Miami Young Republicans event that I'm going to next month, that becomes a natural relationship. And so that's the way that we're going to win this battle. It's by making sure everybody puts in their grain of sand through the app. You can make phone calls. You can send text messages if you can't physically go and knock on your neighbor's door and introduce yourselves. So I don't know if you guys have heard of that before, but yeah, I think everybody can do something to help. And those numbers, it's a game of numbers. I live in Miami-Dade County. And this is a perfect example for what I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Miami-Dade County went red in this last presidential election cycle. I mean, Donald Trump just wiped the floor with the left. However, months before that, we had a mayoral election for Miami-Dade County, and 16% of eligible Republicans turned out to vote for that. And so we have a Democrat mayor of Miami-Dade County. She ran the county within about a year into a $400 million deficit. And so this is a direct result of Republicans not reminding Republicans to go out and vote. We have the numbers, right? We have the numbers. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of making sure our people turn out to vote. So hope that answers your question.
It does very well. As a matter of fact, folks, you know what the Turning Point Action app is because I've talked about it. And for folks in Pennsylvania, we pushed the PA Chase app, which is the exact same app because they were all working together. That's why we donated a lot of money for my little PAC, a big donation to get this operation done. And I use that app too, right here. The other thing, one of the other things I did recently in a municipal election, I got to go and poll watch at my polling place. And guess what? I got to see neighbors that I didn't know were Republicans come vote for a Republican. So I had the opportunity to reintroduce myself to them and thank them personally for coming to vote and everything. We got to take one more break, Brianna. When we come back, though, I want to devote this last segment to what Turning Point Action is doing every day to help do things like increase voter turnout in that mayoral election talking about. We'll be right back with Brianna Sixto of Turning Point Action here on Truth Thursday.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Highest gas prices in America. Record crime, violence, and homelessness.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday. My guest today is a spokeswoman for Turning Point Action and Hispanic Outreach Director, Brianna Sixto. And Brianna, I wanted to show that little clip because it's an activist that videoed a digital billboard sequence about the California Governor Newsom, and she's reading off what the billboard's saying in there. And I think that's a great approach. It's authentic. You're getting the satisfaction if it's you doing it, you're getting the satisfaction of actually doing something. And I wanted to show that to open this segment. So to give you a chance to talk about more about what Turning Point Action does every single day, because you all don't stop. You don't take a break after a presidential election. And I want you to give folks an understanding of what you do every day, what type of people you're recruiting to be activists and what they're doing for you, and what you're doing to prepare for this upcoming midterms.
Yeah, so Turning Point Action doesn't stop because the left doesn't stop. Okay, the Democrats don't stop. They are working year round. That has been their model. They have had permanent infrastructure in place. They have had community organizing in place for years that they later mobilized during election years. Okay, this has been their strategy, is that they connect with the community on off years. They recruit people on off years. And so they don't have to really just depend on hiring a bunch of people last minute during an election cycle. No, they have integrated within communities, and they have basically recruited a ton of volunteers, people like you and me, people like my neighbor, not just like college activists or high schoolers or anything like that. our sister organization, Turning Point USA, which is a C3, they're focused on the high schoolers and they're focused on the college kids and creating a space where they can learn about conservative values. But Turning Point Action, as the name implies, is about action. It's about mobilizing absolutely everybody. And like I mentioned previously, we work within the community, and I obviously would want as many people as possible to download the Turning Point Action app by going to tpaction.com/app and doing that. So what is the actual organization doing on an off year? Well, we are putting together different events where we create coalitions, right? And so coalitions are like clubs. We have a men's coalition, we have a mom's coalition, we have a faith coalition. And so these are local clubs that mobilize together, that create community together, that educate each other. So at these coalition events, like if let's say there's a mom's coalition event, they might get together and do a mom's wine and wine event, right? Where a bunch of moms get together and they paint and they have some wine, but they also connect with each other and they also learn about the Turning Point Action app and they learn how to use it. And then when they go back home, guess what? They contact all of their Republican neighbors, introduce themselves, and invite them to the next mom's event that they might have. So right now, what we're doing is creating those communities. We are creating that permanent infrastructure in key areas, obviously, the swing states. Prior to me being in this spokesperson role, I was in the field program, by the way, for 10 years. So I don't just do this in front of cameras. I just happen to be good at it because I have been doing the groundwork for a decade, pretty much, both with the C3 and with the C4 since 2022. And I think that that is what matters. The field work is what matters. Reaching out to people in the community face-to-face is what matters. Recruiting people that normally would not get into politics to our side so that they do our part. That was my day-to-day job. And training our staffers on the ground, our field representatives, to do the same thing, to reach out to these communities, to bring them together, to create events where they can network with others. And then in some of our states, some of the states that Turning Point Action is operating in, like in Arizona, the chase never stops. The ballot chasing never starts. Arizona is having a very important gubernatorial election that we cannot lose, and that we need to make sure the right Republican candidate wins as well. So they have paid and trained ballot chasers. That's going on in Arizona right now. They get trained at our headquarters and then they get sent out into the community. Turning Point Action is hiring people within these communities. So we're not asking somebody that lives in a certain area that they've identified as a precinct that has a low Republican turnout. So a precinct where there's a high amount of low propensity voters. We're not asking the staffer that we hire there to drive out 2 hours and go knock doors somewhere else. No, we're hiring people where they live. Okay. So that they organize within their own community and they start making those connections there, and that they ballot chase within their own community. So if you're asking about Turning Point Action and what we're doing, that is it. That is it. Everything that we are dedicated to is a numbers game. Some of it is done with paid staffers. Some of it is done with volunteers, because unfortunately, there isn't an unlimited amount of resource. God knows we wish we could have that, but that is not the case. And so we have to, our job is to get as many people onto our side as possible and putting in their grain of sand. And the way to do that is by telling the whole world, screaming it from the top of the mountains, download the Turning Point Action app, please, for the love of God. And making sure that they do that. It's like very user-friendly, super easy to use. And so that's what we have been doing till now. And hopefully with, this happening, we can win a lot more important elections. And as we saw in just the previous segment, Republican policies change things so quickly, right? Like we saw in DC, it's only been 2 weeks and we've seen a 42% decrease in robberies in DC, right? It's just so much has changed, and so it's up to us to bring forth this change and to keep our community safe, and we do so by voting and staying active year round.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that it's not just about young people. I got the opportunity to speak at AmFest last December and was reminded that more than half of the crowd were people my age, between 40 and my age, not just college age or high school age, but there was a large number of them too. And it's great to get the chance to interact with folks. Well, we'll take one more question from the live audience before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, Shel.
I'm Liz, sir.
Hi, Colonel. How you doing today? Hello, young lady. My question to you is, I'm a member of the GOP. How do we get more Hispanic and other ethnicities to join the GOP? I mean, every now and then one person will show up and then they're gone. What can we do to make them feel that they belong under that tent?
Yeah. Well, first we need to meet these communities where they are. And let's be honest, the right has not ventured forth into these communities other than maybe once every 4 years when they're trying to get a vote. So building permanent infrastructure in these communities, that's the way you do it, because otherwise it feels very transactional, right? Otherwise, they're, especially the Black American community, Latino community says, they're coming in because they want my vote. And so they feel very apathetic towards elections as a whole, but meeting people where they are. So recruiting in minority, majority communities, offering alternative sources of information. So, for example, telling them, hey, I'm with the GOP and we want you here. And here's more information about what we believe in. And by the way, did you know that you can now not get your news from Univision and Telemundo anymore? There's this right-wing channel, mine, Claro y Directo America, that you can, watch the news every single day, stay informed. You want to go tell your friends and your familia about it, go for it. And so I think just showing genuine interest and care, I think that's the key here. I think there's a very famous phrase, which is where people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Showing genuine interest in these communities, I think that's the key here. So I'd say go recruit at a local, Mexican restaurant or a local child daycare center where there's a lot of, Latina moms dropping off their kids. Going into these communities and setting up a permanent infrastructure, offering something of value to them, I think is helpful. Something I know some people in the Trump campaign, Trump 47, did in these communities is set up a barber at their Trump 47 offices. So people can come in and get a free haircut. And so that is a service of, value to the community. And again, it's just a creative idea that I remember that stood out for me, that, we can offer to people and just not offer them some kind of brochure or some kind of canned speech. I think that's the way to do it.
Authenticity. That's one of the ways I've been successful. Even though I might not have won a large race, I got in my first race, I got over 200,000 votes in a state that I wasn't born in because I was authentic. And I talked to people and I went where other people didn't want to go. That's what I like about you guys, Drianna. So, all right. So we're at the end of the show. 30 seconds. Tell folks where they can find you. We've talked about tpusa.com, folks. You got to go there. They got great training videos, all that information, and the app. But Drianna, where can they find you and your show before I let you go?
Yes. So go on YouTube and look up Claro y Directo America, Clear and Direct America. So you can follow our YouTube channel. I personally started my YouTube channel under my name, Driena Sixto, DRIENA SIXTO. There's only one walking this earth. It's kind of unique, can't miss it. And it's the same for every single other platform. For X, look me up, Driena Sixto. Instagram, Driena Sixto. It is the same everywhere. Follow me and also follow TP Action, our Turning Point Action page on social media, on YouTube, and follow the Claro y Directo America channel as well. Thank you so much again for having me on the show, Rob.
Well, thank you, Driena, and thank you to Turning Point Action for everything you guys are doing and will continue to do to make this country successful. Well, folks, I'll see you Monday. It's More War Monday again, unfortunately, but we'll have a great show anyway.